What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Make It Kustom. I'm Carl Fisher, and we're back on my buddy Andrew's fenders for his 59 Monarch. We are all going on this really cool camping trip this year. I'm gonna bring the ramp truck. A bunch of our friends are gonna go. This is a car that he's building, and his deadline is this trip. So we're trying to help him out with it. So I'm gonna try and finish these off in this video right now. So lots of little metal shaping, metal working, welding, forming, shaping, grinding tricks. All right, don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications. Let's do it. This is where we left off. We hand metal shaped this whole eyebrow. We ended it right here. And the reason being is that the inside of this, we made this out of one piece in the last video, making it so that that whole lip can be attached and rolled over involves so much shrinking here, so we're making it in two pieces now, because this is the way that I would do it again. I would not attempt to do it this way. This is too much work, and that's why we didn't finish it by doing it that way. This is much more relatable and what I will do in the future. This is what I learned from that. Making it in two pieces, we're gonna make the next lip piece now, once we weld this in. So step number one for me right now, I'm going to prep and weld this eyebrow piece in, and then we will make a template of the piece that's gonna be that lip. We'll put that in, and then we will tackle in both fenders this inside piece that is completely gone. We're gonna try and make something to allow us to bolt the headlight bucket back in, finish the inside sheet metal of that headlight. All right, I'm getting ready to tack this on now. Everything's just clean. Just wanna make sure everything's super clean. This is gonna get prepped and cut out, so don't worry about any of this. We're rebuilding the inside of this next. Right now, when I fit a piece like this that's long, I don't wanna just like tack here, tack here, tack here, tack here. I want to start somewhere in the middle, so somewhere here, and then tack going this way, and then tack going this way. And what that does is, like, if you tack here and there, and this is misaligned up or down, if you align, you're eventually gonna find a spot where it tightens up and doesn't align. That's why you have to always work from one side to the other, like if you're putting in a panel like that. So for this, I did pre-mark a little scribe there and a little scribe here so that we would line up back to the same spot. So I'll just go line those up if I can see it. I'm just looking for two places that really line up like up and down to each other, and we'll start there. Oh, my ground is not a good ground. I'm gonna continue tacking this. Like I say, I'm gonna work from one end to the other. I'll probably have to use my hammer as well and dolly and just kind of line things up. This was all hand metal shaped, so it's a little bit rough. I could have kept planishing it, but I know this is gonna get Bondo, so I'm okay with it, and we can maybe get a little bit out. I think it's a little bit rough right here, but we're just gonna work on it, tack it, and then we will do the classic stack attack weld on it for minimal warping. You're seeing me kind of like hit some of these welds. The reason I'm hitting them is because when you tack a weld, it heats up and then it contracts, so it cools, right? When it cools, it shrinks, and if this shrinks and then this shrinks and then this shrinks, it's pulling tighter and tighter and tighter. So whenever this starts to get tight, like right now, I've done a couple tacks without hammering, now this is tight again. So I'm gonna wanna hammer that tack to just allow it to stretch a little bit, just to make our gap much more manageable and workable so that we can continue to line it up. I've got this pretty well fit up. At this point, this is where you want to slow down a little bit. If it's fitting nice, you might get ahead of yourself and want to just go ahead and weld it. That's not what you want to do. You want to just stop right here and then go back. You just want to grind all the heads of your welds here and then find out if some are high and low. Like, see this one, how it only ground off on one side, not that side. Now you can actually like hammer down on this side and hold the dolly on that side, smooth it out. You saw that I was working with this headlight bezel. Basically, this lip is very important because this is the headlight bezel fit. So how much is this rolled over? Because this is an area that we're meeting with another panel. We need to know this first, right? So I really want this headlight ring to fit nice on this edge before I take the pattern to get the little lip off of it. And before I weld that in, obviously. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm just trying to fit that up. So I'm just kind of like tapping around these edges and using the T-dolly as a backer on the inside. We'll rebuild this lip, and then out of the other two fenders back there's a couple fenders, we should be able to get somewhat of a pattern for what the inside of this looks like. It doesn't have to be exact, but it has to do two things. Like this headlight bucket assembly bolts to, that has to be of a certain size, and then it has to have a couple of bits of hardware so that the bezel mounts as well. So those are the crucial things that it needs to weld up into here. We're gonna make it look as close as it makes sense to what the factory was, but if there's slight weird little stamping things that don't really pertain to anything, we might not get that detailed in the panel replacement in that area. I'm just gonna keep going here. I'm trying to fit the bezel. Once this is where I want it, I will then make a pattern of what that lip is gonna be and get that welded in. As you can see, that was an incredible amount of messing around. So I kind of had the headlight bezel sitting a little bit wrong. Also because there's a massive dent here that was pulling this in. I should have known that I should have fixed that first. I just crudely fixed it so that I could get this bent back out, because that is what was screwing me up. So I had all this metal pushed way in, and I was fitting the headlight bezel wrong, so I ended up having to like pull all this metal out and realign it, and now I feel like I got it pretty good. Now that that is in the shape at which I want it, I will continue back on welding it in and then getting templated on the next piece. Or actually, I mean, I suppose I could probably template the next piece now and weld it all together. That might be stronger. We'll see what I do. Okay, so I just peeled this tape off. This is a template now of that lip. So by us cutting this in a curve versus using a straight piece and shrinking it into a curve, just gets us so much further ahead. So we're gonna end up having to tip and roll a little bit to share the radius of this all the way around. But basically now I'm just gonna cut this out, and we'll just start fiddling with it by tipping that, and we'll just end up having to do little shrinks here and there on it and get it to fit this lip nice, and then we can weld that up as well. Okay, you see how just with a simple bend, how this secondary piece is pretty much almost in form? Now, all I have to do is roll this edge over a little bit, and then I will scribe this edge onto this edge and cut it and fit it. But that piece there is what makes making this job out of two pieces so much easier. And we'll just have one nice little weld there, easy peasy. You see that? It was so easy. I just tipped just the edge. When you're working with only the edge like that, I know I said this was shrinking, this is actually stretching. You know, you just hold it in the form, so have the bend in it, and then just work it on a T-dolly, and it's as simple as that. And check this out. So that is gonna make up the lip, and it's bent all the way in like how it should be. And so we're just gonna keep fitting it, trimming it, and just gingerly weld it in with the top. All right, so I did not try and do this slow, and I'll tell you why. And the reason being is that it's right on this radius, and when you have that much strength of having like a tight roll in sheet metal, it just keeps its shape so much better. So I just went for it just to save time. I know this is gonna come out pretty nice, and if there is any adjustments, we have a little bit of wiggle room, and you know, we still haven't beat up this flange at all. It's just a nice bit of a roll. So anyway, I'm gonna grind this out a little bit, finish welding a little bit, and then we will do the stack attack technique, the heating and heating and cooling, I guess. We tack, and then we use air to cool each tack to keep the panel super cool. That's how I'm gonna do the top side. So you'll see that, and you just methodically map it out so that you're just stacking a tack on a previous tack and just kind of moving across the panel, spreading the heat evenly, but also keeping it cool, because in between each tack you have a little bit of air blown on it with the air blower. That's what's next, and then we will figure out what to do with the inside of this. We're gonna have to rebuild the inside of the headlight bucket, and I'm not sure exactly how we're gonna do that yet, but we will use the headlight buckets themselves and figure it out one piece at a time. Okay, stoked on how that turned out. Ground out really nice. Usually when, you're shrinking the edges too, there's lots of meat to play with. We are ready to continue on. I am gonna hammer these a little bit just to align them like I was mentioning before. I didn't get to that last time. So any of the ones that are standing a little proud on one side and not on the other side, I will use the dolly on the low side and hammer on the high side to try and even these out. This is a perfect time to do that when you've got spacing about like this. It's close enough that it'll kind of hold the sheet metal up and down. And if you take the time to really align these now, that means that once we're done, it will sand out, nice and smooth. Right now, I've got everything kind of ground down, and there is some warp in this stuff. Like, this is a bit low here. We've got some misalignment here, and I've just kind of ground away into the excess metal. There is quite a bit of material on the backside. I can feel it, like it's just full penetration back there. So I probably will have to flip that over and grind some of the extra weld on the backside. And then I'm gonna hammer this a little bit just to try and get some of the lows up and just make it a little bit more evener. And then we'll move on to that inside piece for the headlight bucket. Fender is welded and ground for now. This top piece is complete. We did do a bit of hammering on that. I know that this is like one of those controversial things about metal shaping, and it's a lot of people really dislike MIG welding because it is a little bit harder and it has a little bit more tendency to crack. So by all means, I agree with that. You can't really like do a bunch of metal shaping on and over top of MIG welds, but that doesn't mean that you can't do like a little bit of bumping, right? Like this did have some like warps in it and, you know, bits. So we ground the back side just to make sure that there wasn't any high spots of weld, so that when our dolly went on the back side, you know, it's not just sitting on the welds, right? This didn't take very long and it's not perfect. Like I know it looks good in the camera or whatever, but you know, it's not dead perfect. This is gonna need a little bit of mud. Everything is always going to need a little bit. This is as good as I cared to make it. You know, like these lines are punched in good enough that we can sand them and make them, you know, pretty sweet. This is the headlight bucket. This is the gasket that would go in between. It's got 1, 2, 3, it's got 6 mounting screws. Although there is a left and a right side fender and they are not symmetrical in the shape of the tin, these are symmetrical. Like one isn't poked forward or back like some cars are. They are the same both sides. So we only brought one, which is fine. Now this is a look at the inner piece that we need to recreate. What I had mentioned before about it doesn't have to be exact, it's because it doesn't. It's right inside here. So maybe some of these details we might not even go for, because the shape of the original lip even is a little bit different than what our patch panel has and what we have there. So what we are going to do is make a template of profile that this gasket needs and that this needs to be, because it does cut in quite tight. And we'll probably just bend a piece of sheet metal and then shrink the edge to create the curve of that headlight socket so that it can kind of wrap around like this. That will be one piece, pretty easy. And then we might just tip the edge in to give us a couple spots to mount this hole. And there's another Bluetooth hole here that would be the 2 screws for here and here. Those are the critical things. We need to be able to mount this and seal that. So that profile has to be right. And we need 2 holes for that. The actual shape of this doesn't super matter, although we could go as far as repairing it exactly to spec, but this is a totally custom car and I know it doesn't matter. So we're gonna do it what makes the most sense and what is the most efficient way of doing it. So I'm gonna jump on that. We'll make the pattern first and start off by making this piece for both sides. Yeah, so this fender's an extra one that Andrew had brought. So I'm just gonna clean it up and then trace the inside of this so that we can get this profile here, all the information off of that, and we'll use this to check our piece. We'll be able to, like, it's pretty rusty, but obviously it's together enough that we could do some shrinking on these flanges and start curving it and just bring it to check to see if it's the right shape. Okay, so now that we've got these pieces both made, what I've got to do next is just start kind of fitting them. Something that happens when you are doing this type of kick shrinking is the flanges will get all kind of torqued in weird ways. And the reason being also is that because we've shrunk here and it's curved this, that doesn't mean that this is exactly bent in the right curve. So the form, so like not shape, just bending, is kind of out of whack a little bit. So this actually kind of curves this way, and it's because this is kind of twisted. So those are all little tweaks that we've got to keep thinking about. Like it's if you weld it in crooked, it's always going to be crooked, right? So we're going to have to fix some of that now and make sure that this sits nice and flat upon a table, so then it'll be flat when we bolt everything together. Then what I'm going to do with this tab is I'm just going to give it a bend and a bend to catch up underneath the lip that we've got on our new patch panels. And on that bend, I'm thinking will be where the hole is that we were talking about earlier, that the headlight bezel actually mounts to. So what I've got now is these pieces are all trimmed out to fit that headlight bucket. That's this stuff here. We needed to be able to get around those things. So our template came in handy again. So that must mean that that is the top. Now I have to fit these pieces in and fill in the blanks, basically. These corners I knew I was gonna have to do. I might get lucky and not really have to do that corner, depending on how things roll out there, but I'm going to try and align this so that I can get all the screws in the headlight bucket so that that mounts nice. And then I want to mount this on there as well, put these holes in, make sure that mounts nice. And as long as that's all good, everything to fill in the blanks can be just kind of like whatever's easiest, you know, like we're probably just gonna use like a little strip of metal and put a little bit of a break in it and get that to fill it in. So right now, I'm just gonna do what I just said, just mount the headlight bucket, get those mounts in, and fit the bezel as well, and get those holes in. All right, so we are tacked in. Yes, I do have a little bit more work to do here. I'm gonna have to make a dumb little piece. It'll be nothing, it'll be easy. I'll use some tape and just make a little piece that fills that gap in. I got a little bit of a gap there, but this piece will be super easy. It'll probably end up being just one piece on an angle. I'll just fill it in. But this flange turned out perfect. It mounts beautifully. I traced out the holes for the headlight bucket so it fits nice and tight and right. And that bezel fits on beautifully and has, you know, just some easy to drill holes. Like, we'll probably assemble it completely, put the end piece on, and then drill a couple holes, and just after those two mounts are in so that it's exactly where it's gonna be. I think this is turning out perfect. I'm very happy with the way it's coming along, and I know that I only have just like a few little more bits to fill in there. That's what I'm gonna do next, is just get all those filled in. We'll weld it, grind it, drill the holes, mount it all up, and call her a done job for Andrew. All right, so we are done with this thing. Check it out. Turned out really good. I definitely learned a lot from this. Hopefully you guys did too, following along how I kind of broke it down into smaller pieces, bite-sized chunks into doing this repair. In the future, I probably would have just checked my pattern a little bit better and left a little bit of extra material in those spots where I had to fill. As far as getting something repaired that was non-existent to take a proper pattern from, I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. So thank you very much for watching Make It Custom. Don't forget to check out Make It Custom Unleashed. It's our second channel that we've just started. It has tons of cool extras on there. If that's something that you're interested in, it helps me out if you subscribe or throw a comment. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.